Hello, guys. Welcome to this new edition of Mind Podcast. This is Aadit Kapadia, and thank you for joining us this weekend. I have a fabulous guest with me, as he has introduced himself. We'll call him Mr. Arnab, not that Arnab. If you have been a regular subscriber of our Mind Podcast, you'll know Arnab Ray, who goes by Great Bong on Twitter, author, columnist, and has probably the better take on 90s than even I do. But has written multiple books. His books have been adapted into series, and I think most recently, I think he had a series on Hoi Choi, the platform that just premiered a few months ago. So Arnab, now we can call you from author to celebrity author. So
By the way, it's on MX Player also.
MX Player also.
Dubbed in Hindi. But by the way, the fact that it's on MX Player, I don't endorse the other content on MX Player. And neither do I watch it, by the way.
Maybe of course, but you do endorse your own show, so it's good.
Yes,
We'll
sure. Please watch it on MX Player if you don't know Bengali. It is dubbed in Hindi. And I think it is free also. So you don't have to
And
pay anything.
and if you don't know Bengali, you can always contact Arnab. He's giving free lessons of Bengali in California. So, but but uh, but yeah. So thank you. And he also has a podcast called the Attention Please podcast. But the Mahabharata Murders is the name of the series. The name of the book, fantastic book. We've talked about it previously on Mind Podcast as well. It's one of our recommendations. So thank you, Arnab, for coming in, and
Thank you
always
for,
great to have you.
thank you for having me.
So, Arab, to kick things off here, it's been a fascinating week, and I want to ask you your perspective because I think let's take a bit of a rewind and start with what happened this week. One of the reasons why Arnab and I connected is we have a bunch of topics that we discuss in the podcast, but I saw a piece that was written which quoted Arnab, and the center of the controversy is the whole Wire versus the Meta thing. So for people that don't know, Wire is a platform based in India, uh, leans towards the left, and is no doesn't hide that it takes on, it opposes Mr. Narendra Modi and BJP, and which is fine. Every platform takes its thing. But the reason I mentioned this specifically in this case is they had published a story, something about that BJP's Amit Malavia had some access to some checker or some
Exchange,
sort of
exchange.
check, sorry, program. And basically there was a post on Instagram that was removed in 2 minutes, and they alleged that it was done at the behest of the BJP. Now, Meta, the company that owns Facebook, Instagram, they vehemently denied the charges, and then Wire pulls out a bunch of emails about some Andy Stone and so forth, and then people come out and say that the emails seem to be fake, and then they quote two tech experts, and then the tech experts themselves redact. Okay, one of them says they were not contacted. I mean, it's such a big khichdi. So then I think what Wire did not expect was American tech media to actually start picking it up, which they did, and they published pieces. And then Wire is now conducting an internal review, which somehow thinks that didn't they conduct that before they published the story? But again, not my platform, not my place to comment. So
Internal review in this case means going to the third umpire, where the third umpire is Shakur Rana.
So, yes, what a brilliant analogy. So, for people who don't know who Shakur Rana is, one of the most like, I mean, जिस अंपायर को इमरान खान भी बोल चुका था कि भाई ये तो नहीं चाहिए पाकिस्तान के मैचेस में, look him up, right? So, read more about Shakur Rana. But so that's in a nutshell of what happened. And the piece that we saw, I think it was, I forget which platform it was published on, but it quoted Arnab on it. So I want Arnab's perspective on it, and what do you think about this whole controversy?
So the platform that quoted me was The Verge.
The words,
And
yes,
The
yes,
Verge.
sorry, yes.
So I do 90s Bollywood, and all of the Twitter stuff is on my free time. What I do in real life is cybersecurity. So that is, I'm a PhD in computer science. I've been in the cybersecurity domain for almost close to 15 years. So as part of that expose on, and whenever I see expose, I always think of that Himesh movie by the same name. Unfortunately, that word has been tarnished forever in my mind. But
That doesn't have an E, it's just expose.
exactly, it doesn't have an E. And that is the expose actually. That it
Yeah.
doesn't have an E. So So what I had, so one, of course, I was following the whole controversy. One is because, of course, I have nothing better to do, and the other thing is I'm in general interested in, let's say, anything which has a cybersecurity flavor, anything which has a fraud flavor in it. So one of my side hobbies is watching these fraud buster videos on YouTube, where fraud call centers in mostly centered in Calcutta, by the way, are busted. So I usually love seeing how fraud works. So in general, cybersecurity is kind of a subdomain of fraud, I would say, technical fraud, which is why I've always liked it as a kind of like a sucker for detective stories. It's like it's the only thing I can get which is close to law enforcement in my life. So that's why I took cybersecurity, to be honest.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's part of this conversation. One
Huh.
of the things that the Wire reporter
Hmm.
said was that he can conclusively prove so again he didn't say it explicitly, but for those of you who don't understand the technology behind it, it was strongly implied
Hmm.
that they had solid technical proof using cryptography.
And the reporter since has deactivated his Twitter account, I
Yeah,
may
he was
add.
apparently hacked also, so
Acha.
that's what I
Huh.
so so that person said something
Hmm.
which just doesn't make sense scientifically. There are two
Hmm.
things that I pointed out. Whether the first thing had nothing to, well, there are three things actually. First thing had nothing to do with cybersecurity. It was that the purported email that this Mr. Stone wrote was written in Indian English. Okay, no
Hmm.
native speaker in English talks like that. It is
Hmm.
very, very Indian. So, but let's presume that this person, after being surrounded by desis all his life, has suddenly picked up the desi lingo. Let's presume that is also the case. So, okay, let's presume that. But two of the claims, one claim that they made was that they, so the claimed by Meta was that the email came from Facebook, and they said we don't use the Facebook email anymore. So what this person did was sent an email to the Facebook address and said, well, it didn't bounce, and we have conclusive proof that it was read. So what I had said was that first of all, there are many things that you should caveat this, that when an email is deactivated, it's not that
Hmm.
you cannot receive email on it. There
Hmm.
could be a forwarding setup. It just
Hmm.
means you cannot send email from that account. So for
Hmm.
instance, when I was a PhD student in Stony Brook, for many years I had a forwarding address from my old graduate student email ID at cs.sunySB.edu to my
Hmm.
Gmail.
Hmm.
Even though I couldn't access my university email, of course I couldn't. I was no longer a student, but I had that set up. It was a courtesy that they provided. So the fact that email doesn't bounce doesn't prove anything. Okay,
Hmm.
but again, the reason why they write this, and this is what's important, is the the reason why we think that Ajnabi is about cybersecurity, right? As long as you so now
Everything is planned. Is the password.
everything is planned. So and Switzerland has, and somebody can
Mind
escape.
mind you, everything is planned was how Wire ran this story also.
So it was that level, right? It's just the moment people see somebody at a computer hacking in, they see that they think that okay.
Huh.
By the way, I have to take a detour here. One of
Huh.
the biggest one of the biggest movie boo boos ever
Huh.
apparently was in Independence Day, right? Where
Huh.
the aliens come and Goldblum basically uploads a virus, if you
Huh.
remember.
Correct.
So that was considered to be like, how can that happen, right? How can something like, how can we both be using the same computing platforms? But apparently, I learned that in the movie there was a scene which they cut out where they explained that, where one of the scientists said that our entire computer technology was basically stolen from their plane which landed before. So everything we have is basically theirs, what they could understand from their technology. Now, if you say that, it totally makes sense. But somehow somebody decided to cut that away because, after all, who cares? Anyway,
Huh.
so coming back to this, so my point was that whenever, and the second thing which I pointed out was they were trying to show that and I'm not getting into the details of it, but they were trying to show that something tied the email to Mr. Stone. And I
Hmm.
was saying, no, it merely tied it to the domain. There is no
Hmm.
way. There are other technologies which tie it to a particular person called T20
Absolutely.
in this case. It doesn't
Hmm.
tie it to that particular, it ties it to the particular domain. So this is exactly what the Verge carried. It didn't carry
Hmm.
my Indian English thing, but it carried
Hmm.
this part because this is the scientific thing, right? So that was my involvement, and the main problem, and the larger issue is this: when it comes to tech journalism or when it comes to
Hmm.
anything tech, see,
Hmm.
most people don't understand what is being said. Like, I
Hmm.
don't understand, so I'm not saying this is, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I could only understand because this was about something which I do for a daily living. I read so many tech or science articles about COVID, on which
Hmm.
I, of the last 2 years, of which I knew nothing, zero. It was
Yeah.
just my parsing of that guy parsing something else. It's like a
Huh.
game
Yeah.
of Chinese whispers. I don't know if you can say that anymore, but that was the thing. So I can't understand. So I either get very alarmed, or my mind just glazes over and say whatever they're saying must be true because it's written in New Yorker or it's written in New York Times. So this is to me is the more concerning thing. That one thing is opinion, right? We,
Hmm.
when we turn on Republic TV, we know what kind of opinion we are going to get. If you
Hmm.
don't know, then you're the sucker, really. You can't
Hmm.
say that I
Hmm.
turned on the TV and oh, I thought this was an independent channel. Then you haven't done your due diligence. But
Hmm.
when you are reading something, I'm not saying that Wire's opinion pieces are like that, but when you're reading something which apparently comes across using the facade of science, which it isn't,
Hmm.
that to me is really dangerous.
No, and this is confirmation bias taken to another level, right? Because this is not just confirmation bias. This is you looking for bias confirmation of something theory you have theorized using your bias, right? And you are not quoting actual sources, right? You are so okay. Confirmation. So I'll just come to a point, and this is why I want to expand. Just wanted to add a point here, right? There is one thing that you go for five op-eds that are actually sort of leaning to your ideology and use that, right, which is confirmation bias. This is there are no op-eds. You are actually for looking for a source who claims who has seen those op-eds. It's the strangest thing ever. Sorry, go ahead, Arnab, I didn't mean to
No,
cut you.
that's another thing. I mean, that part where the reporter says that these people have confirmed this, and they said no, we've never.
Hmm.
Of course, because their
Hmm.
credibility is on the line too. So they said this is right. So nobody in their right mind would say that it is right. But
Hmm.
overall, I think for me the alarming thing was that, and it's not that I don't understand really. I mean, I totally understand that the way media is nowadays, this is what people have to do in
Hmm.
order to basically run their business, unfortunately,
Hmm.
because you're basically catering to people who are looking for you to confirm their biases. Since
Hmm.
you talked about confirmation bias,
Yeah.
that's the business model. You have to show me, you have to provide me something which confirms my bias and makes me happy.
Mm.
It's the
So
exactly the
actually,
same thing I go to McDonald's.
you bring this to a fantastic point, because at the heart of it is this all these fact checker subscription driven models and portals like that, right? So there's Wire and there's News Laundry and there's all these portals. What has annoyed me the most is, say, News Laundry started off in 2012. You people like you and I have been on Twitter for a long time. We know the kind of positions it took. We knew the kind of things it took, right? And I'm not pointing fingers here. What has happened, unfortunately, is a lot of these portals were supposedly taking on the big boy, which is the Times of India's, Indian Expresses of the world. Ultimately, there almost was an unwritten rule that a lot of these, if portals, if they're ideological, if they are online portals, they don't take on each other. So if the Wire messes up, till shit actually hit the fan, proverbial shit actually hit the fan on Twitter, and people called it out. None of these portals were actually featuring articles. Otherwise, typically they would have ran with this Wire report. Oh, Wire got this brilliant report that BJP is colluding with Meta. You know what I mean, right? So unfortunately, there has become a online sort of cabal, the same way when there was, which is even worse than the big media cabal, because the online cabal says that we are actually taking on big media, and which they are
No,
not.
so you're right. So it's just a matter of scale, right? So it's just a matter of business model.
Yeah,
So I tend to not look at these in terms of people and biases, and more in terms of why people do these things.
of course. Yeah.
So in 2010 or 2012, when the whole Radia tapes happened, in none of NDTV's rivals at that point of time
Huh.
did anything or said anything. There was
Hmm.
almost a conspiracy of silence.
Hmm.
Now it changed. So over the
Hmm.
years, what happened is Arnab Goswami basically broke that contract of silence. I think
Hmm.
there was also a personal aspect in Arnab Goswami's tirade
Hmm.
against his ex-friends. So I
Hmm.
think there is a Saudagar thing going on, which I would love to make it Saudagar too, with Rajdeep and Arnab Goswami on both sides. But uh, but but
Who will play Anupam Kher?
I want to know who will play Amrish Puri. That movie. But going like this, so I, but, but
Unfortunately, I don't have enough hair to do that. But yeah, sorry, go on.
but the thing is that, see, they were similarly silent about each other. But
Hmm.
then what happened, I think, is based on certain long-standing personal animus, which I think doesn't exist.
Hmm.
This is good. Doesn't
Hmm.
exist among the quote-unquote new media guys so far. That this contract was broken, and once he, for the first person who bought out the clause, like really went after them, Arnav. Now, whether it was a business thing or personal thing, it was a combination of both. After that, obviously, if one person keeps on going after you, at that point of time, the other person will also fire back.
Hmm.
And I honestly feel, I mean, I don't like to say anything good about Rajdeep ever, but in terms of Rajdeep versus Arnab, Rajdeep is kind of all, I think, has taken the higher moral ground, in my opinion, than Arnab, at least on this, at
I,
least.
I will say tell you one thing positive about Rajdeep. One thing that I've disagreed with him. Like I disagreed with him 2 days ago. He still hasn't blocked me on it. He actually continues. But
Blocked
he
yet.
does. He'd block me and unblock me. I have no idea why. I opposed him so many times. Elections he does well, like on election
Dance,
day.
the dance you mean.
Unfortunately, yes,
The dance.
I हाँ मतलब no dance नहीं भाई, no. So last 5 years elections have been horrible, but उससे पहले the whole Prannoy Roy form of elections, the American style where you only focus on the numbers and get the idea. Rajdeep used to do a little bit better than the others do. Unfortunately अभी तो इंडिया में no one does elections well. Like it's like one place appears like a battlefield where everyone is shouting. One place appears, NDTV studio appears like a retirement community home center where all these uncles who are above 70 are sipping their chai and be like, "देश की हालत क्या हो गई है?" And now they've added for variety, they've added N Ram also. So I'm like, it's like really sad to watch. So I mean, it's unbelievable. So I think online portals are the way to go. Humble plugs for all of our podcasters and so forth. But jokes apart, coming back, coming back to this, you're right. There was a conspiracy of silence on Neera Reddy, and Barkha actually. People talked about Barkha and stuff, but a lot of people, except for headlines today, doing this podcast broadcast with Veer Sanghvi, where they did a one-on-one, right? The print journalists were not. MK Venu की तो कोई बात भी नहीं करता, who is actually one of the founders of Wire.
MK Venu was like the Deepak Tijori of the whole thing. Was there in every scene, but nobody noticed him and nothing
Yeah.
happened to him.
That's true. Actually, he probably had more success than Deepak Tijori. But Veer and others might be more offended by now asking कि who is Rahul Roy in this. But
He's only Rahul Roy, of course.
but but jokes apart, coming to the whole crux of the whole Wire versus Meta thing. Ultimately, I think Wire got, you know sunlight is the best disinfectant, as they say, and they couldn't take it. So now they're doing this internal inquiry. Let I think hafte mein to we have not heard anything in the last 4 or 5 days from the Wire, and they are
We
still
forgot.
asking for money.
It will be for, see, they have to see the whole thing. There is this uh, news laundry says this, right? That,
Hmm.
you know, pay to keep news free. I have a fundamental problem with this. It's the logical fallacy is immediately obvious here, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Take you 30 seconds to get the logical fallacy. Is that somebody always has to pay, right? So the moment you said their thing is corporations pay, we serve the corporations, you pay, we serve you. No, you don't serve me, you can't serve me because you don't know what it means to serve me. Your
Hmm.
thing should be, I tell you the truth. It's not that you serve me. The moment you serve me, you will serve my biases.
Hmm.
Exactly in the same way that you cannot expect corporate media to actually focus on the people who pay them, which is to
Hmm.
bust their biases. So that's why
Yeah.
corporate media will always give you the truth that does not offend their advertisers, because that is exactly what they want to do,
No,
then
and
similarly this new age will never do something which offends their paying subscribers.
yeah, absolutely, they're comrades. Huh.
So see, there will always be a vast number. I read long ago that a significant portion of Fox News's um, watchers are hate watchers. So
Hmm.
they watch it because they hate it.
Hmm.
So hate watchers are there to, everybody wants hate watchers.
Hmm.
Republic TV wants hate watchers. Hate watchers are important because hate watchers are also a customer, right?
Hmm.
They're the anti of the person that they're trying to serve. Now,
Absolutely.
the hate watcher, if you have a rational thing, if I come to watch you and I find that I'm not disagreeing with you or I can't demonize you, at
Hmm.
that point of time, my fun is lost. It's
Hmm.
like it's like when I used to watch India Pakistan, and I there was this video of Yunus Khan. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but
Hmm.
Yunus Khan running off up. There was a when there was a video of Yunus Khan at a store
Hmm.
selling photography services.
Huh?
Yes, so he has a business in which, like in those days where people used to go and develop like.
हाँ वो फिल्म नेगेटिव वगैरह हाँ.
So there is a guy who's shouting at Yunus Khan, and Yunus Khan is like trying to say that some photos have not been delivered or ruined or whatever. And when I saw that, I actually felt terrible for him. I felt,
Hmm.
man, this guy is there was a captain. Can you imagine
Yeah.
somebody in India going and shouting at Dhoni or going like
Hmm.
say, "Jeez, can
ए
you
फोटो दे
imagine?
मेरे को.
Can you imagine somebody in India will forget
Yeah, I
Dhoni?
mean, for
You
God's
know,
sake, that man has 10,000 runs in Test
yes,
cricket. How many
forget
people in the world have it?
forget Dhoni. Even a Munaf Patel, like, would anybody say anything other than sir or Kuruvil or anything to that guy? Like they would be like this to him. So when I saw that, I felt really bad for him. But this is not what I want to feel. Like I don't want to go and feel bad
Hmm.
so this kind of busts my bias, right? I go
हाँ.
there to see Shoaib Akhtar saying the latest terrible thing about India, right?
मतलब
That is what Shoaib Akhtar's channel runs on. Now, if
हाँ.
Shoaib Akhtar starts saying rational things, then
हाँ.
it's not fun anymore, right? I
हाँ.
will not go to Bangla cricket to read the comments if they suddenly start having like very,
और नहीं
very
क्रिक comment section. Crick Info's comment, the minute India they ban India and Pakistan fans having a go at each other, no one will actually go and comment on Crick Info. It is
exactly.
only
So conflict and extreme opinions. That is what people want. So the main problem with Wire, and I was going to write something which I again lazy haven't written, is that Wire, the 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 Wire's real fault isn't the bad reporting. The Wire's real fault is that they let their paying audience down by giving them something which they are ashamed of now. That is the biggest failure. See, I come to you to have, there is a suspension of disbelief, right? Whenever I want to go and see a movie, it is the it is the that is why special effects have to be a certain level. I know that there are no dragons in Game of Thrones. There are no dragons in the real world. So you have to set up these rules,
yeah.
which I'm then going to believe. I'm not going to say, oh, why is there a dragon flying in the sky,
Yeah.
right? But if suddenly at the end one of the characters like Daenerys goes crazy, then I get mad because the internal logic is spoiled. That's bad storytelling. So that's
Yeah.
really what Wire is guilty of.
And ultimately, so there is a podcaster from the left, Amit Verma, whom I disagreed with on many things, but he wrote this very interesting piece where he said that people are choosing tribalism over principles, which is why people were initially supporting Wire. People on the left are choosing to be more loyal to Wire and portals rather than talking about whether this story is good or bad, right?
No, people will always support tribalism. There's nothing unique.
No,
There's
no, no.
nothing.
No. But he was not talking about people that isn't subscribers. They were talking about fellow journalists. And I'm like, bhai, but fellow journalists have always done that. The fact is, you are only seeing it now because you're choosing to see it.
Any human being, and this is
Huh.
my opinion, any human being, and this is wired into us, has to be tribal. And
Yeah.
again, I can, it would take me hours to explain this, but it basically it all comes down to something called the prisoner's dilemma.
Hmm.
So our whole notion of empathy, our whole notion of that tribalism, that I will support you no matter what,
Hmm.
even though, I mean, I will convince myself that you are right, and I will feel personally injured if
Hmm.
you are proven to be bad. I mean, it doesn't make sense,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. No, but
Why
you,
would
you
why would I fight for Saurav Ganguly
huh?
online when Saurav Ganguly wouldn't stop if he saw me dying on the street, right?
Hmm.
Why would I get into a personal battle on with another person who might care for me over Saurav Ganguly who wouldn't?
Hmm.
That is there's a lot to be said for why the human mind works like that.
This is fantasy. This is why I love having a podcaster on. Arnab and I were talking, and I said that my next topic would be T20 World Cup. He's already given me three segues. He's given me Shoaib Akhtar, India versus Pakistan, and Saurav Ganguly to segue into cricket, which we will in a couple of minutes. But no, you're absolutely right. You know that is that ownership you get. You know that from coming comes from the tribal mindset. I have to tell you a funny thing. So when the India China Doklam conflict was happening, was it? I think during Doklam, N. Ram was not saying anything. He was conspicuously quiet. Like, I mean, short of food recipes, he was tweeting every day, but he doesn't take on China. It's a well-known fact. So one day I was very bored in life, and but I'd been analyzing this, but I don't waste time on that. I wrote like four or five tweets. Tagging N. Ram, and they went pretty viral. Ki why is the chairman of Hindu, who a publishing group who claims to be a journalist, not having a single position on the biggest conflict that's happening in India? And then Enram about blocks me on Twitter promptly. An hour later, issues this absolute bullshit statement which reiterates the position of both the external affairs ministers and still refuses to condemn China in those four tweets. And I'm like, this is unbelievable. Like, but that is what ideological tribal mindset is. That you've wired yourself so close to use the term wired and certain ideologies, what you believe in, that you feel like anything else you should come it comes with the context and stuff. And the sad part is right now, since as we're moving into sports, the journalists are talking with the mindset of sports commentators, and sports commentators these days are talking with mindsets of journalists because they don't want to take on the board that is employing them or giving them, and they don't want to take on ICC, they don't want to take on franchise league tournaments. So cricket commentary has become this bizarre thing where just no one is taking any positions of
Yeah, they
any issues.
can't criticize, right? Nobody can criticize. The only person who criticizes, I think, is Sanjay Manjrekar, and he criticized Ravindra Jadeja, and look what happened to him. So,
Or Harsha Bhogle,
Harsha
poor
Bhogle,
thing was giving
the
a
most
nuanced take.
the most inoffensive of guys. I can't think of one hard solid position he's ever taken. Well, Bengalis used to call him anti Ganguly at one point of time, by the way.
No, but that is any time at that time who was pro Sachin was equal to anti Ganguly, right?
No,
And
he was very pro Azharuddin at that point of time. I think
because
that
he's written a book, na Azhar, and things
Hyderabad,
and
Hyderabad Azhar.
Hyderabad and the Bombay connection. But Harsha ka what interesting hai that whole BCC I think actually has served him well, because now on Crickbuzz and on then he's taking positions. He was on Great Cricketer. He actually took a position on Virat Kohli and things like that. So I think the Harsha Bhogle, I think, has now sort of realized his position that the BCCI cannot do what they did to him again in 2016 without pissing off a lot of people, because quite frankly, all the other commentators suck.
Yeah, I think they do, but I think they suck because they are not allowed to. They're
Huh?
not they're not allowed to say anything that is even moderately controversial. I mean,
So,
there are many things which I think one is, of course, the whole political correctness and everything that has to happen. So people are very conscious of what
yeah,
they
yeah.
say. I think
I mean,
Dinesh Karthik got into some trouble, right, with something that he said when he was commenting.
Sunil Gavaskar, the whole thing with Anushka Sharma.
Exactly. So they obviously I mean, again, when you're on live commentary, you have to always it's tough, right? First of all, many of them, at least Indians, are not native speakers in English. That's one thing. Second is they're having to parse, cricket. Third, they have to make it interesting.
Hmm.
Fourth, they have to cater to a wide level of, audience backgrounds. Many people are not interested in the technical parts of the game at all, and many
But
people want masala.
that annoys me. So right in Australia there is the Fox Sports, which is a jingoism masala commentary, right? Where it's like brah brah, and then you have Channel 7, which is the more nuanced take. Right? In England too, you have Sky Sports and the BBC that does the highlights, or the TMS that does the radio. In US, you have in multiple language commentary. If you listen to the English commentary and if you listen to the Spanish commentary is always more charged up, right? They have the goal, all that, and it's fun. So I think in cricket we can afford to do that. And I've ranted about this, that I agree that a lot of our commentators are not native English speakers. That's fine. You have to only keep them in Hindi boxes, right? Like it's not wrong for them to speak Hindi, Bengali, Gujarati, Kannada, whatever native language they are. But if you are doing a world feed, that you are trying to say make a world class sport, you have to have the best in the world. And I just find it crazy that our panelists lately are Deep Das Gupta, Murli Karthik, Anjum Chopra, like for our games. I mean, I mean, Murli Karthik, to matlab, I think that man deserves a commentary Ratna award, because who was it? Jasprit Bumrah got man of the match, and he's like, Jasprit, Jassi Jassi koi nahi. तुम्हें क्या लगता है? Things like that, and I'm like,
No,
really?
but again, I would not blame them. I would say that
Huh.
okay. So when I started watching commentary, which was in
Hmm.
the 80s,
Hmm.
my age, I was
Hmm.
a little boy. You see, commentary was essentially radio commentary.
Correct.
It was like basically describing what was going on, which
Hmm.
was strange because you could see what was going on, right? And the only person who was like Narottam Puri was obsession on statistics. There were
हाँ
some people who the Hindi commentary was kind of a little dramatic,
हाँ
in the
सुशील
sense that
दोषी.
yes, yes. So there was like Benjamin was pronounced as Benjamin, and Haynes was pronounced as Hennes, and
Hennes.
and I remember this, or ye Jabardast Dhakka. Whenever
धक्का.
India used to come out, you turn on the television, India batting, or ye Jabardast Dhakka. Before the cathode ray tube warmed up, I heard that I knew what I was going to see. So I was
हाँ
pissed on.
हाँ
So, so but the best commentator was Pataudi. Pataudi virtually never spoke. There was like they would try to make him speak. He would not say anything, and he would only say when he had something intelligent to say. Otherwise, he wouldn't talk at all. It was sometimes very difficult because he would sit. They would focus the camera on him, and he would sit with his like absolutely expressionless face. And these
हाँ
guys would be like, he's the expert commentator. So cricket should either be like that, where the guy speaks. The first is people have to fill up the empty space. So the other end of the spectrum was Charu Sharma. His
no.
ability to continuously talk without saying anything of any importance. It was amazing that he was continuously speaking, but there was absolutely all noise, no signal.
Hmm.
Uh, so for me, commentary, good commentary, and there are some people who I like. I think that they have to dumb down their commentary nowadays. I think that is my
So
main problem.
there is this, and I'll tell you, in England Australia की Ashes चल रही थी last year, right? And there was this period where Johnny Bairstow and Ben Stokes or someone played out eight maidens in a row. Like it was to a point where it was getting very boring and stuff. And then and David Gower was on the British side, right? So he was, very subtly talking and stuff like that. Then they score one run of the ninth over, and David Gower just doesn't say anything. Expensive over, one whole run from it, and the score, and then he ends, right? Very subtly, he put the point across, right? Now, agar and the opposite side is when late Shane Warne, when he was thing, he did a poll on pizza, right? Like, agar game is drifting away, right? How to catch the audience in? You started talking about pizza, and he's like, you like this kind of pizza and stuff like that, and both are legitimate ways to doing it. Our problem on the Indian side is we do neither. We try to go somewhere in the middle where we have to keep talking, but we cannot talk about anything else or something like that. Like, I've never seen an Indian commentator probably talking, spending 30 minutes talking about, like, food or something like that, or
No,
like
I
culture.
heard I have there was this viral clip of Ganguly and Dravid, right? At one point
Huh,
of
no, no,
time.
no, they did, yeah,
Ganguly
yeah,
said,
but
you underbowled me. And Dravid said, because you'd have
huh.
worked on your fitness a little bit, I would have. You were a good bowler, but your fitness wasn't up
So
to
I,
it.
I will say that was fantastic when Ganguly, Dravid went into the commentary box, right? But they were on ESPN Star Sports, and those tours were tours to England and Australia. So they were not commentating in BCCI series when they would say this. My
Yeah.
problem is with the home commentary. But
Arun Lal and everything.
हाँ वो तो मतलब लक्ष्मण शिवरामा कृष्णन. So but going to that segue to the T20 World Cup, right? What do you think about the T20 World Cup? Ocha, guys, big thing. This is being recorded before the India Pakistan match. So अगर आप, if you listen to this podcast after the match, don't troll us saying what did you say, match में तो ये हुआ वो हुआ. We don't know what's going to happen. All we know is New Zealand absolutely thrashed, and I believe thrashed Australia today. They thrashed them worse than England beat Afghanistan. That's how bad Australia's loss was. And I honestly don't see them going to the semi-finals, at least after this. What
I,
do you think?
I I'm not. I'm again. I don't know, but New Zealand, like that. I don't think, again, I don't think it will happen every day. That opening, that fin, that some of the
No,
shots they
yes,
played
no, I agree. But
were
I'm
like
saying in general,
unreal shots.
yeah, unreal shots.
They
Absolutely.
were like shots you see in para cricket. Right, a guy comes in bowling underhand, fart. Like he was not even looking at the ball. So either Finn is like amazing, and he's this is the way he's going to play, or what's going to happen is Finn is going to join Kolkata Knight Riders, and that's the last time we'll hear of him.
Isn't it? I think he's in Mumbai Indians, if I'm not mistaken, right
Oh, he's in
now.
Mumbai Indians. Okay, then we are in real trouble now.
Yeah.
Then we are in real trouble because
Or
if
hold on. No, no, I take that back. I think he's in RCB.
he's in, okay, then he's gone also. Okay, all right. So he's dead. But even if or he will become like Chris Gale, but RCB still will not win the cup. But
So, yeah.
but the fact but Mumbai, by the way, has made some good purchases. I said it last time, and I think their purchases are like Tim David. You can see it happening,
Yeah.
and so. But coming back to what you said, yeah, I'm not. I wouldn't count Australia out yet based on one game,
Hmm.
but it gave me this strong deja vu of the 1991 World Cup in Australia, where Australia lost the first game and they went in as favorites, and then they were eliminated. Or they didn't make it. They played very
Absolutely.
bad.
That was Martin Grove who pretty much and Mark Greatbatch and Finn Allen played a Greatbatch-esque innings because
Yeah,
when
it's that
people so
kind of innings which you could obviously see the Australians were not prepared for it. Nowadays, most of the bowlers, you can understand that because of extensive analysis, they bowl in a very targeted, strategic way. Especially bowlers like Hazelwood, right? They're
Hmm.
very good bowlers. So the reason why I think that Dhoni's preference for bowlers when he selects them is people who execute on a plan. He is perfectly fine if you execute on the plan and then you get thrashed. But if you
Hmm.
cannot execute on the plan, that you don't have the skills to execute on a plan that's given to you, that is for a software developer, I give you the requirements and you can't write code to those requirements. I'm not saying think of the requirements yourself. I'm giving you very detailed requirements. Just write the goddamn C code for that. If you can't do that,
Absolutely.
then you're not a player in Dhoni's eyes. Or
I
whatever you do, your hardware, your basically operating system screws up. At this point in time, nothing you can do. Well, Hazelwood is one of those guys, right? Amazing improvement in his bowling.
Mhm.
He was like not even in Australia's T20 plans, and now he's like the top number one T20 bowler in the world. Um, so when he gets thrashed like that in on a cloudy day on an Australian pitch, it says
And
something.
where there has been rain, like Sydney
Yes.
has had a lot of rain. I mean,
So
and
I play fantasy. I went in looking at, oh my God, it's cloudy. They won the toss. Let's put the three pacers into my team. Of course, you know exactly what happened because I did
absolutely
that. But
fast.
but
So
that was
yeah.
my thought.
So one thing I have to tell you before we get into India Pakistan, that because that I want to end with India Pakistan. We want to talk about the other teams and then go to India Pakistan. I did a podcast with Kushal Mehra a couple of weeks or last week I think where we previewed the World Cup and people asked me and I was like I told them that I wouldn't be surprised if West Indies gets knocked out very early because the team has been a disaster and it's been for want of a better word an absolute cluster.
I mean,
People
how?
missing their
I mean, one
missing
person missed the
flights.
flight, and
Huh.
then
No, no, he missed his flight twice. So I said misses his flight. So someone actually wrote a super chat saying, "Sir, he missed it twice." Once from family issue and second time I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" मतलब एक बार बेवकूफी है, दो बार I don't know what it is.
he's Hetmeyer is very high. Is all I can say. He
हाँ
flight twice.
but हाँ Russell is not there, Narayan is not there, and West Indies के so when you have this Shekhar Guptas and Rajdeeps of the world, like when they talk about West Indies, right? A lot of them have seen cricket in the 70s when West Indies was dominant, so they will talk about West Indies the same way they talk about Punjab whenever there is an election. Oh my Punjab, what has happened to you? This what and this, and I do lament for Punjab and stuff but there are also real issues why this happened. Similarly, for West Indies, I'm sad that the team is not doing how it will, but it's never going to go back to Clive Lloyd's. Just like Australia is never going to go back to Steve Waugh's Invincibles. It will be a different version of it, right? तब T20 नहीं था, and West Indies has this brilliant sort of talent, which actually performs very well individually. But as a team, I don't know. They have the same problem as India has at the top, where Rohit Sharma, KL Rahul, and Virat Kohli play excellent when they have a dasher on the other side. But instead of having a dasher, we've put three of them and they all three strike at 130. That's not how it works, right? So West Indies has five players, all who are trying to strike at 200. तो वो कभी हो ही नहीं सकता, right? That's why you had the collapse in the first game and so forth. So this is an impending disaster until West Indies cricket gets money and stuff and finds a way to make money. We I don't see that happening. And quite frankly, this is going to be a very unpopular thing to say. I think Indian broadcasters need to get their head out of West Indies cricket, where they are forcing them to play one match at 10 o'clock in the morning to so that people in India can watch the CPL. I'm like, this is ridiculous. कभी ऐसा कहीं पे भी देखा है that 10 o'clock you have a local time game at 10 o'clock? I mean, Arnab, you watch NFL on and off, right?
I don't.
You don't? Okay. So, if you, one of the things in NFL over here in America is I watch NFL, that NFL, there are a few games in London, right? So, those London games in America are telecast at 8:30 in the morning, America time, Central time, which is 6:30 in the morning Pacific time. Now they can actually telecast it at 10 or 12 Pacific time, but that would mean like about 10 p.m. London time. And what they cater to is the local people ke make sure the stadium is full. So similarly for West Indies cricket, I hope the Indian broadcasters actually give them the breathing space. They do. Do you know during COVID they were having their finals at 9:30 in the morning for IPL, their version of IPL. I mean, can you imagine an IPL final at 10 in the morning?
So first of all, I think one of the reasons for CPL, if you is that the owners are all Indians now. Like all the
Yeah.
IPL franchises
Hmm.
own. So they're basically extensions of the IPL franchise. Now, with
Absolutely.
respect to West Indies cricket, the thing that is that if you look at the first West Indies star was a guy
Hmm.
called Lady Constantine
Hmm. Hmm.
in the 40s.
Hmm.
So when like Lady Constantine was essentially, if you read about him,
Hmm.
and there's like some grainy footage of him, he was essentially like a Andre Russell of those
Hmm.
days. Like he
Hmm.
was Andre Russell at his best. Is that absolute fast bowling, hard hitting. He could feel like he would bowl as a pacer and then go field the ball and cover. So he was that
Hmm.
fast.
Hmm.
So obviously in those days the notion of fielding was different, but it was like way beyond what anybody had ever seen in terms
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
athleticism. So, but West Indies never truly won. They were never really the force that
Hmm.
they became in the middle, even
Hmm.
though they had by far perhaps the most talented individual performers in world cricket. So, this is not
Hmm.
a new thing about West Indies. What happened was that, and there are books written about it, is that in the kind of the late 60s, driven by a notion which was driven by South Africa and racism, and that they kind of united because there are multiple countries, right? It the West Indies team is like if India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh put together a team. How do you think that team would consistently play? Terribly, right? That's exactly what that team is. It is made up of different countries.
Yeah.
But Orel and the three W's, they brought together this kind of idea of India, the idea of West Indies. So they created a cohesive unit. They said, look, individually, we as countries can't stand up, but if we kind of unite as an island, we can. So that led to the great West Indies that Rajdeep Sardesai, based on, I'm pretty sure, his father's memory of
Yeah.
having in West Indies at their best in the 71 series where he was a standout star, the Lip
Hmm.
Sardesai, is that is this West Indies they see. But now that thing that united them is kind of no longer there anymore. So they've
Hmm.
kind of evolved into this set of mercenaries, right? That's what they are. As I once said, they're basically a collection of very highly paid consultants. So
Hmm.
there's one guy from Boston Consulting, one guy from McKinsey, extremely expensive talent, but you can't put them together and just expect them to perform because they
Hmm.
no. And also, I think they have made a terrible decision. The only person in the last few years who I felt could have united them, could have been was Holder,
Hmm.
but they
Jason
started
Holder.
with him and then they kicked him out. And so they kind of look at Kyron Pollard, absolutely ineffectual guy, tremendously selfish person. And you have that as a captain, the entire culture goes to hell. Whatever Holder did is gone now.
Hmm.
There was a light revival under Holder. Even Darren Sammy, who obviously I love to make fun of Darren Sammy because
Hmm.
there's the typical software VP in the sense that he doesn't bowl and bats after in number 8,
Hmm.
but he had that thing which whatever it is that leadership which got them together. Now it was terrible. I mean, Nicholas Pooran is absolutely ineffectual.
Hmm.
What about
Absolutely, and they need that they need that cohesion. But so I mean, this is not surprising. So moving on to the last four teams, I think before we talk to India, about India and Pakistan in the end, what are your four teams to be make out, and what do you think of England? Because Ben Stokes is fast becoming their Shahid Afridi, where he keeps retiring and coming back.
um yeah, well, I,
Hmm.
I Ben Stokes, I always felt has kind of been. See, the thing with England is that
Hmm.
English cricket, and if you read the books written about English cricket in the 80s, there was always this tension
Hmm.
between the Graham Gooch types
Hmm.
and the Jan Botham types.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So English cricket has always been run in a very staid, very, very rigid English way. So if
Hmm.
you deviate a little bit, you are kicked out. So the problem with Jan Botham was exactly that. That somebody like, so there was this famous incident with, say, David Gower and Jan
Hmm.
Botham, were two
Hmm.
people who they couldn't manage because they
Hmm.
were very un-English in
Hmm.
their outlook to life, in their cricket and everything.
Right.
So Mike Brearley was considered to, because Mike Brearley was a guy who could work with. So the thing about Mike Brearley, if you so Mike Brearley was the quintessential British gentleman, but he could basically bridge the gap between
Hmm.
the Gooches and the Bothams. So he
Hmm.
could sit in between and he could manage. That was Mike Brearley's genius. Now I think that obviously England has changed over the years,
Hmm.
and but you still had that problem with Kevin Peterson. So they
Hmm.
have a problem with certain kinds of individuals. They have a problem with Alex Hills, for instance, who has
Hmm.
been banned for many years. He's recently come back. So I think Ben Stokes is a problem, is somebody who they find difficult to manage because unlike Indian cricket, where cricketers, if you're a star, you're allowed to do whatever you want. Virat
Hmm.
Kohli at one point of time just could do whatever you want. Install
Hmm.
his stooge as the coach, fine, you'll do it. British cricket still doesn't allow you to do that. So when you
Hmm.
have a star like let's say
Ben
a
Stokes.
who's a star, definitely he's a star, and he knows that he's a star, and he maintains that star aura about him.
Yeah.
That same thing with Peterson. That's where you get into this kind of personality problem. Also, Ben Stokes, I think, I'm not sure, but Ben Stokes, great player, but he's not mentally very strong. So I think that's why you find Marlon Samuels gets into him because those guys, they realize that this guy can be bullied. So
Mm.
he's not
No,
able to do. So
and you're right about the stars, right? Because again, England has had a very few stars. Botham, Flintoff, Peterson, Ben
yeah,
Stokes,
but
very few
Flintoff
stars.
can't be bullied. You see, there's a difference
Yeah,
between
Flintoff can't be. Neither could Peterson or Botham. Yeah, right. No,
Flintoff
so
is
I
a
was
total
coming.
gunda,
So Ben
total
Stokes was
gunda.
a different one, right? So Flintoff का एक ही corollary था ऑस्ट्रेलिया में, who was Shane Warne. Shane
Yes,
Warne,
yes.
Shane,
And
I
Flintoff
mean,
had a very terrible relationship with the English board because he was
oh,
exactly that
yes,
guy.
and Shane Warne, same thing. I mean, he was
Yes,
never made the captain of Australia because the board hated him
Shane
to
Warne
be
was
the leader.
extreme. Shane Warne in England, he possibly would have never played if he was in
Yeah,
England.
I
Australia has
don't
a
even
higher
think.
tolerance, but
I don't even think he could have played in in India also. Like in most countries, he probably wouldn't have played the long career because Vaughan का ये था कि Vaughan was the best, and his arrogance came from the fact that he knew he was the best.
and he was a very, the fact is Warren is a, I mean, this entire aura of Warren, right, is that he's a person he's like a rock star. He's a rock star.
He is.
He's see, you can't hire a rock star. When people say I want to hire a rock star, you really don't want a rock star in your corporate environment if you really want.
Yeah.
So he was that, and it's good that he was able to play in Australia. But the thing about Shane Warne and Wicket is that the he had, like Dhoni, he's a
Hmm.
guy who is just successful. He was, we have to mention, to use the past tense for him, unfortunately now, but he was a guy who was just came to Rajasthan, won it for them. He's that kind of a guy. He just get whenever he used to come on to bowl, it was he would get the wicket. The World Cup game, he would just change the game. Not anybody else could do it. Australia had a super. Other 10 guys were also awesome, but they could beat bad opposition down into submission.
Yeah,
Shane Warne was the guy you brought in when the opposition was had the upper hand, which is why Shane Warne, their defeat in India was Tendulkar took that thing out. He
yeah.
took their last card out, which was Shane Warne. That was the reason why they used to lose.
And so yeah, and Ian Chappell, whose commentary I absolutely admire, had this wonderful thing to say. He's like, when after the series, Shane Warne came to me and he's like, "Did I bowl badly?" He's like, "No, mate, you didn't. It was just bloody good batting." And he's like, "What Tendulkar did was he went to Ravi Shastri and asked him." This is when Ravi Shastri was doing great commentary and doing coaching on the side, not the other way now. But he asked Ravi Shastri that, "How do you play Warne?" And Ravi Shastri said, "I played him because I'm tall and I could defend him, come basically a foot ahead and defend. You can't do that because you are essentially a foot shorter than me. So what you do is you have to attack him, your option." So that's when he got Lakshman Shivram Krishnan, scuffed up the wicket and told him to bowl leg spinners in Chepauk. And boss, if you want to go back to when Tendulkar won the game against one, it's not in Chennai. It is in the tour game that happened in Mumbai, where Sachin came out for Mumbai, and him and uh, as crazy as it sounds, Sanjay Manjrekar took Shane Warne to the cleaners, and they won the game against Australia in 4 days.
Yes.
So it is unbelievable. So coming back now to India, you give me that. So India, Pakistan, right? So who are your four teams who would make it to the thing? I think my dark horses this time would be Sri Lanka and New Zealand. Yes, I know Sri Lanka lost to Namibia,
New
but
Zealand will
I would.
definitely be in the first top four. There is no
Hmm.
dark horse.
But do not count out Sri Lanka knocking out a couple of doing a couple of upsets, because it's a very strange team. Like Sri Lanka's team actually reminds me of their pre '96 World Cup team, where they had two to three very good players. In Muralidharan and Jayasuriya and things like that. Similarly, they have Rajapaksa, Vanindu Hasaranga, and people like that. And another team that I would not count out is South Africa, even though people are writing it off, but you will see some. I think South Africa is weirdly motivated to do well this time because no one's taking them seriously.
Yeah, I top four is a favorite question, and I answer it, but I can't say what the top four are going to be because it's essentially everyone. This is except unfortunately I have to say except India. If see when I say top four, I usually see which are the teams which have the core things worked out. Now, of
Yeah,
course, it's a random thing, right? So,
yeah,
but who have no noticeable problems? India has all the noticeable problems, in
yeah.
my opinion.
Death bowling, no Bumrah,
No, no,
no Jadeja.
so as I've said, it's the top three. See, the top three, um, it is the absolutely worst top three that you can have, in my opinion. And I'll tell you why that. And I've said this also in my own
So
podcast.
and let's go into India Pakistan also while you're
Yeah,
talking.
but this is true for the game against Pakistan, most very much so. So
Hmm,
what happens is that Pakistan's best bowler is a left-handed bowler, right?
hmm.
All our top three are right-handed batsmen. They're right-handed batsmen with a common problem. All of them have a problem against the ball coming in from a left hand. So they are
Absolutely.
the three. They essentially, if Shahin Shah Afridi could choose three batsmen to bowl to as one,
Hmm,
two, three, you would pick
hmm.
KL Rahul, Rohit Sharma, and Virat Kohli, and we send them one, two, three straight to him when he has the new ball. So there is like this to me just blows my mind. There's a very simple way to have gotten around this, which is too late to do, which is to open with Surya Kumar Yadav, to open with Rishabh Pant, to have a right left-handed guy who
Yeah,
takes the length that Shaheen Shafridi has off. Because the thing with Surya Kumar Yadav is he doesn't play conventional cricket shots, right? So he's a
yeah.
360 player. Shaheen Shafridi struggles against that. Shaheen Shafridi is very good against conventional batsmen like KL Rahul, who's as
That is
conventional.
why Matthew Wade hit those three sixes. Two of them actually came behind.
That is the ball. He cannot bowl against left-handed guys with left-handed guys like Rishabh Pant,
Rishabh Pant,
and
yeah,
right-handed guys right Surya Kumar Yadav. And we
yeah.
either don't play Rishabh Pant or play him at a spot. We play Surya Kumar Yadav at number 4, where the game has already been decided either way by the top
Oh,
three. So the top three is wrong. It has always been wrong for the last 2 years. You cannot play T20 in this day and age with people like KL Rahul, Rohit Sharma, and Virat Kohli. Where they are in their careers right now. I'm not saying at no point of time could they not have played. So
mm,
I just think you can. That is for me the big bowling and all. It is there. It has
mm.
always been there. In a India versus Pakistan game, I would never say that India will outbowl Pakistan. Pakistan will always have the better bowling side, but
And
we
India
would
will always outfield Pakistan.
yeah,
I mean,
we
you
would
can.
always have the better batting side. We don't even the Pakistan's main problem is they have only two good batsmen. But the problem is those two good batsmen virtually never fail together. That is the big problem.
And not
So
just that, Mohammad Rizwan has the most like he is been doing to India what Sachin has done to Pakistan in World Cups.
he's
Sadly,
been doing to many teams. He's been doing to many
no, no,
teams.
I know, but to India in the last three times he has like an average of 60 or 65 against us, which in T20 is insane. That means he's an average of 50 or 60 every game.
See, Mohammad Rizwan's amazing shot is he sweeps fast bowlers, right?
Yeah,
So he can sweep fast bowlers. So see, you need that kind of batting in T20 because T20 bowling is essentially, they have a plan on every ball and they hit those lengths and they bowl it, right?
boss,
So
and this is why I love the fact that we have what you may call Mohammad Shami is back in the team.
yeah, I had asked for Mohammad Shami a long time ago. I'd said, see, you in Australia, Mohammad Shami can lose you the game absolutely, but you will never be able to win games with a Harshal Patel.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah, like I was
You
like when I said that you bring the guy from Gujarat, I meant from Gujarat Titans, not the guy from Gujarat. They actually misunderstood. They didn't
So
get the guy from Gujarat Titans, Mohammad Shami. They got the guy from Gujarat, Harshal Patel.
so you need in Australia, especially on those pitches. Now, honestly, I still feel that in tomorrow's game, India have a better. So the the best possible way. Now, I obviously want to reverse jinx India. I want India to win, but India's the best outcome is India get onto a batting paradise. If Melbourne the pitch is a batting paradise, like,
Hmm,
and India get bat first,
hmm,
which in Australia is usually good.
hmm.
If India bat first on a batting paradise, that is the best thing that India can do. The only way India wins against Pakistan, in my opinion, is India bat first, put up a 180 plus total, and then basically put the pressure on the Pakistani batting. Pakistan's batting after the first two guys, nothing great to talk about.
Hmm.
So if you can just put that pressure on, because otherwise, if you India chasing, I I don't think India can chase
India can chase. I
like
agree with
Pakistan
you completely.
on given the top three that we have, and I just don't think we can chase.
No, I agree with you because I think the thing is, and honestly speaking, our best option if Virat has to play is Rohit and Virat to open, or and Surya at three, Hardik
No,
at
no,
four,
they won't
and
change anything.
no, no, they
The
won't. But I'm just telling you that we can play two out of Rohit, Rahul, or Virat, not three. Like it just
No, no.
like
For me, honestly, if it was an ideal thing, Rohit will play. He's the captain. You
yeah.
shouldn't play Rohit or you shouldn't play KL Rahul. You should open with Surya Kumar or with
I
Surya.
don't even mind Shikhar Dhawan to open the batting. I actually don't mind. I don't know why they don't like picking him because Shikhar
Shikhar
is not.
Dhawan they consider is too slow nowadays.
Yeah, which is
So,
because Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, and KL Rahul तो आग लगा देते हैं. I mean,
yeah,
my
because
God.
KL Rahul, I don't know why KL Rahul is not considered slow. KL Rahul is, that's the I like KL Rahul. He's obviously I love watching him bat. Very attractive batsman to watch, but he's not in Australia and all these places. He's not a
But
T20.
Harsha Bhogle had this beautiful line. He said that Warner and Pant are better Test players than they are T20 players because a lot of shots that get them runs in Test matches actually get them out in T20s. because the 17 of 18 balls in, because their style of playing is such, na.
But Warner has won many IPL tournaments on his own. He's the only guy who's won a tournament
Yeah, yeah,
cricket
yeah. No, he's
IPL.
talking about
Nobody
now.
else. Yeah, he's right in many ways. Sehwag, for instance, was has a had a, like his test match
Hmm.
record is nowhere close to his T20 record, right? You would think
Hmm.
his T20 record would be better, but it wasn't. It's right that there are some players who are. The thing is that they're conventional players who score fast. It's the AB de Villiers and Chris Gales who are the beasts
Beast.
in T20.
Absolutely, I agree
And
totally.
and then now yesterday you saw somebody like Finn Allen. You see those shots were not see the way Finn Allen played those shots. None of those guys would play those shots. Finn
Absolutely.
Allen just
Total.
came out, his bounce weight part, the strength of those shots were just. I just hope that he.
The only person, and if his technique was a little better, if his technique was a little better, who I've seen in India who plays those shots is Prithvi Shaw. But his technique is suspect. But वो जो लगता है ना ठाक करके when he hits the ball, I mean it is unbelievable to watch.
Prithvi Shaw is again, I think, again, Prithvi Shaw needs to work on his fitness. He
And
doesn't
technique. Yeah,
technique. I think there was somewhere where it was. It's not Virat Kohli, but I think once his fitness comes in, I think his technique will become better. I think some
maybe.
of his technical problems are posture problems.
Which
It
is
doesn't
why,
happen. It doesn't
which is
happen
why
to Virat. Virat
Sehwag.
could play, right?
No, no, and which is why Sehwag was one of a kind. I don't know. He was not at all what these yo-yo test players are. He would enjoy, but my God, his hand-eye
No,
coordination.
Virat Kohli says see, the problem with Sehwag and Vivian Richards
Hmm.
both is that they play purely on muscle memory and hand-eye coordination. They don't have technique. Even Vivian Richards didn't have technique,
Hmm.
but their hand-eye coordination was so freakish that it didn't matter. They were
Hmm.
so good. But the problem with players like that is that their form just precipitously goes down. They reach a place where the moment that fine tuning with age goes, it's a fine line. Immediately their game falls to pieces. It happened to Richards, it happened to Sehwag. Sachin, on the other hand, played for years
Hmm.
after his timing had gone off. Right, his 2003 that Sydney innings was the official start of his late Sachin career, where he just
Hmm.
stopped, where he just became a different. He didn't. He was no longer the Sachin we grew up seeing. But as I said, he used to give light at that point of
I
time. He
no,
changed.
no, and if Sachin has ever been god level, it is that 37th year of his batting in 2010 when he scored a double and just kept hitting hundreds for fun
See,
because he just was unbelievable.
see, you compare him with Kohli and you see the difference, right? Kohli was considered to be
Absolutely.
as good as Sachin, but here's what happens: there is a time when you are young, it doesn't matter. Your real class comes out when you lose that hand-eye coordination, and then you have to live on other things.
Yeah.
Sachin had so many other things that he could live on. Look at
Hmm.
Gale. Gale, you think is hand-eye coordination, but he isn't also.
Yes,
Gale has
absolutely.
Gale's, at least in my opinion, the hand. See, he's what 42, some ridiculous age, right? He's obviously cannot play cricket, but
Mhm.
anymore. But the fact that he can still like even 2 years ago, he could still from time to time play like Gale of old. It tells you something. I doubt where Kohli will be able to play like that any ever
No,
once he reaches Gale's age.
no, he can't, and you can see that with those elevated extra cover shots or those phenomenal pull shots that he was bashing Mitchell Johnson. I for anyone who gets a chance, like because thankfully we used to get local broadcasting, right? In US, you get like Australian, like Channel 9 coverage. So when Channel 9 was actually good, Bill Lawry, Tony Gregg, and Richie Beno. I remember this is MCG where Mitchell Johnson was smashing it, and Bill Lawry was calling, and he was going ballistic. And then because Tony Gregg is his friend, right? So it's like this reminds me of Doug Walters smashing Tony Gregg in the Boxing Day Test match, but that was rubbish bowling. This is a great fast bowler, and Virat Kohli is absolutely murdering him. And I remember like Mitchell Johnson had been smashed for like 100 runs in like 16 overs or some crazy thing like that. So that Kohli, that where dekhne ko man karta hai that, but I will end this one part with one devil's advocate point. If there is any country on this planet where Virat Kohli can get back to form, it is Australia. Let's
Sure.
not forget, Sachin was completely out of form when he got to Australia. It took Australia. That is one similarity between Virat Kohli and Sachin. They love playing the Aussies in
See,
Australia.
that's why I said the pitch has to be a batsman's paradise. If the pitch is swinging, that's
Hmm.
where India was like shot out for 37. That kind of a pitch, then it's a problem. But if it's a good batting pitch in Australia where the ball comes, there's a good bounce and carry. It's not too
Hmm.
paced. Then yes, that's where Rohit Sharma becomes comes into play. That's where even KL Rahul comes into play. That is where at least this batting can survive, I believe.
Hmm.
Australia
Yeah.
is the best place for India to play in this day and age. I don't think even India is that good a place for for some of the Indian batsmen that we have.
One last question before I let you go. Do you think we play Ashwin in this World Cup at all, or no? No, because I think if the wicket turns, we play both Ashwin and Chahal. If we play one spinner, it has to be Yuzvendra Chahal plays all games. I think.
The main problem that I have with T20 is with Ashwin is his fitness, his fielding.
Ah,
It comes
that's
back to that very controversial statement of Dhoni that he made. I can't play all three in Australia on Australian grounds.
hmm,
Australia, the ball, it's a different kind of fielding experience. And Dhoni was
hmm,
absolutely right. You need to have like super fit guys in
hmm,
T20 on those fields. You can't be carrying, and we are already carrying a few. Like Rohit Sharma is going to be carried. He's not
hmm.
he's the captain. He's not going to be dropped. So Ashwin is ruled out by virtue of that, in my opinion. You just can't have two of them in the field.
Fascinating. Well, we'll see how it goes out. But Arnab, this has been a pleasure as always. Thank you so much. We've gone a little bit over time, but it's always great chatting with you. Maybe after the World Cup and before the India Australia series, we'll do a preview again or something. And
Sure.
but thank you for all the fantastic work you've done. Our recommendations, I would recommend please read Arnab's work and watch the show that we talked about. And as Arnab said, watch every other thing on MX Player and let him know how it is. I'm just joking. I'm just mentioning watch Bobby Deol in Ashram and watch how badly he can ham and what passes off for good work. I'm kidding, of course. Don't take us seriously, guys. We have too much fun doing this podcast. But do read the books. Do watch the games. आपका homework ये हफ्ते के लिए यही है. Watch all the T20 World Cup games and let us know how it is. I'm secretly also rooting for Ireland to do well, except for when they play India. I really want the team to do well because Irish cricket had got to a very good point and then they faltered and they had a very heartbreaking loss last time. They have a fantastic team. Like they almost beat us twice. Like in two games when India played Ireland in Ireland, Harry Tector is a gem of a player. He's 22 and he has this amazing game. He's the guy who hit 100 against us. So let's hope he does it. But thank you once again, Arnab, for joining. This has been great.
Thank you for having me.
And guys, please follow Arnab. He's at GreatBong on Twitter. Please like, share, subscribe. Please follow his podcast. Let us know how you think in the comments. We'll be back next week with more. Till then, it's goodbye from Mind Makers and thank you for joining in.